The algae Karenia brevis, more commonly known as red tide, has been plaguing Florida on both coasts for months. Red tide, a toxic algal bloom, is a respiratory irritant to humans that has much more serious consequences for marine life. Karenia brevis is a neurotoxin to shellfish. It also causes many fish and marine mammals to die as well, in what is known as a fish kill. These dead fish and marine organisms wash up on shore, causing a terrible odor. Red tide has been recorded in Florida as far back as the 1700s, but has been happening with increasing frequency over the past several years. This year marks the 8th time that red tide has reached the east coast of Florida since the 1950s. It is typically contained to the Gulf of Mexico. Red tide wreaks havoc on coastal ecosystems and coastal communities. Red tide drives away tourism and decimates fish populations that many people in beach communities depend on to survive. The longer red tide lasts, the greater the impact on coastal communities. The bloom will continue until there are no longer enough nutrients for it to survive or the dropping temperature limits their growth, and the bloom will remain on the coast until it is moved by the current. The initial red tide bloom on the west coast of Florida in 2018 never died, but was rather moved offshore. Hurricane Michael brought this bloom back as it traveled up the west coast of Florida. Many people believe that the long-lasting and increasingly frequent red tide blooms are caused by fertilizer runoff from land. Certainly, these plankton are using up all the additional nutrients they can get, which is prolonging the bloom. Scientists are still debating if this runoff causes red tide or is merely a contributing factor. Regardless of where it comes from, red tide is a detriment to the health of Florida's marine life. Governor Rick Scott has poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into research on red tide and ways to prevent it. Mote Marine Laboratory in Sarasota is developing a method to remove red tide from the water, but it is still being developed and tested. Red tide will continue to decimate Florida's communities both on and off of land until we find a way to prevent it. It is up to us to protect our beautiful ocean.